was your heritage to you as a kid growing up?
So important. I'm really quite traditional, actually. Contrary to what some people may think about me, I'm quite traditional in the family sense.
Tell me what happens on Sundays.
Sunday, we make red gravy, tomato, pomodoro, and it's usually made with fresh tomatoes that my father and my mother go to our friends, the Maniscalcos, and we boil the tomatoes and add the basil and the garlic and the salt and the pepper in these huge vats in the backyard, and then jar it for the year. And then on Sunday, we put it in the pot, we spice it, let it simmer all day, and make sausage and meatballs and pasta. We've since switched to whole wheat pasta from my dad's heart. After a while, those Italian men, gotta start eating healthy.
Tell me about your relationship with your Aunt Joanne.
Well, I never knew her. She died when my dad was really young. But it was sort of she was this enigmatic figure in my life. This person that died that meant so much to my dad's family. I just felt really connected to her. She was really into poetry and crochet, and she was a painter, and my grandmother had her works of art all over the house. I think that she, in a way, makes us closer to our dad, makes us understand him more, because he's very strict and he's very protective, and I think that losing her contributed to that. He just never wanted to let us go. I printed her poetry in my first album. I remember I brought it to my dad and I said she never got to be a published author, so she is now.
That's so rad.
Yeah, I surprised him. He opened up the booklet. People always ask me how I have so much energy or how I work so hard, and I always sort of humorously but half seriously say, I think I have two hearts. I think that maybe when my mom gave birth to me, she passed along the spirit of my dad's sister. I don't know if everyone believes in things like that, but I'm Italian, so I really believe in things like that. I believe in ghosts and bad luck. I'm Italian. So I think she lives through me. Every night before the show, when we pray, we say Joanne before we go on stage.
For me, it's all about family.
I'm a pop singer. People say your life must be so hard, blah, blah, blah. Oh, you can't go anywhere, blah, blah, blah. Criticism, scrutiny, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, you don't know about scrutiny. You don't know what my grandmother went through. You know what my mother was been through, my father. And the dream of my family to have a legacy. The dream. My grandparents came here from nothing. My father was the first to go to college. My mother was the first to go to school. It's like the dream of my family. My father wasn't always the most open-minded person. And watching his life change, meeting the fans, watching my mother's life change, my sister, my grandparents, I feel now like we just have this greater purpose as a family. At the heart of all of this, there's someone very young and Italian deep inside me that just really wants to continue the legacy of her family, for her father, for my dad.
I have a love affair with New York. When I'm pulled away from it, I try to find New York wherever I go.
Right.
If I'm in Tokyo,
Well, this is how I get home. My leather jacket's like my Dorothy slippers. That's why I changed when we sat down. You said, I want to ask you about New York. I said, you better get my leather. I wrote so many songs on this new album about New York City. I mean, every song on all my albums has some relationship to New York City, but one in particular, Marry the Night. That record is about my husband, New York.
Tell me about that. You gotta break that down for me, Gaga.
Fernando Garibay, who is the musical director on the album, one of my favorite things about him is that he collaborates. He's just so free. You know, we've been working together for years, so I'm so excited. I feel like, you know, you and I have yet to have our big hit record. We've never conceived. They kept saying to him, I don't want to do anything I've done before. I don't want to sound like anything I've done before. I don't want to feel like anything I've done before. I want it to be new. And I heard, down, 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 down. And it's these church bells. He goes, your show is a religion. So your fans are a cult. Dum, 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 dum. It's this epic music, just so big. And I started to cry. He said, what's wrong? And I said, I can't believe you hear me so big. So I sat down and I'm gonna marry the night. I won't give up on my life. Just right away, just like started singing. I'm gonna marry the dark. I mean, just like went right in. And then I wrote the verses. I hadn't written the chorus yet, and I said, "Oh, you know what? I'll write the chorus after the show." And then I remember he said, "Okay, let's listen down." And I was starting to walk out the door, and then the chords for the chorus kicked in, and I went, "I'm gonna marry the night," like right away, out of nowhere. I'm not gonna cry anymore, out of nowhere. Just went for it. And it was just like that it was. Mama, marry the night. And I was like, it's like Whitney, but imagine if Bruce Springsteen had a baby with Whitney Houston. That's what it is. So that's what it is. And then he said, okay, that's what it is. And that was it. We made a baby, finally. After all that fornication. Miserably long and tedious. Fernando and I finally conceived. I'm gonna marry the dark. Gonna make love to the stark. I'm a soldier to my own emptiness. I'm a winner. Nothing's too cool to take me from you. New York is not just a tan that you'll never lose. It's never gonna go away. The tan of New York never goes away. After the Fame and the Fame Monster, I had this tremendous feeling of loss because I hadn't been in New York for so long. I missed my friends so much. I felt haunted by my past. And then I sort of woke up one day and I was like, what the f*** are you crying about? Just go back. I literally knocked on people's doors while they were asleep in Brooklyn. Just, it's me. Open up. You know, toothbrushes with foam hanging out of their mouth. And what are you doing here? Me and my best friend have two bikes. Karen and Henry from Goodfellas. And we would just ride around and ride to the bridge, ride down the old streets. All the neon signs popping out of the sky. All the darkness lifting into fluorescent colors. All the dirt turning into gold dust and rainbows. The way I see New York City, it's so otherworldly. It's this neon Roy Lichtenstein look at life. It's just this completely magical and beautiful, joyful place. That represents for me feeling the exact same way now that I did back when I had no record deal and back when I had no voice in the world other than my very sweet and small one that was shouting on Stanton Street. And it's so important for me because in a very strange way, when you travel as much as I do and you see so much, the world gets smaller. You're on a plane and you get off and you're in 50 different countries and it all starts to turn into something that's very linear, and it's really not. The world is wide and huge and endless. When I ride Henry reminds me how big the world is because it takes so long to ride 20 blocks in that city. It's a whole mile. And it feels very different from being in the backseat of a car or being on an airplane or being on a stage where, you know, the stage is this one city block. When I ride around and I look at the stars and I look up into the sky, I know it sounds crazy, but sometimes I just don't do that anymore. You know, I'm so busy working. I'm trying to become better for my fans, but sometimes what will be better for them is when I look up into the sky and I say, well, that's the brightest star. Sometimes you just gotta look. I ride around and my security gets so mad at me. They're like, where have you been? And I just say I went on a bike ride. It's no big deal. What's the worst that could happen? Someone says, are you Gaga? Yeah. Ching ching.
I'm gonna marry the night. I won't give up on my life. I'm a warrior queen, live passionately tonight. I'm gonna lay some